What's up, Internet? You're tuned into a very special episode of the Flip Screen Games podcast where we are here to review and react to Sony's 2021 PlayStation Showcase event. Sony said they had some big stuff, and I feel like they delivered. And it's such a hot episode, such a timely episode. There's not even an intro. There's not even an outro screen. We're just going to dive right into this for you so that we can get this up as soon as possible. So I am coming hot off this. Steve, you got to watch it live. I had to watch it time shifted for a work event. So I'm like 5 minutes coming off of this thing. And, I know everybody likes to say I'm a Sony fanboy. I'm a real Sony pony, whatever you want to call me. But I'll say this. Sony fucking delivered, and I'll punch any motherfucker who disagrees, all right? That's where I'm at today. How are you feeling coming off of this, Steve?
Well, I'm not so... No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I
was going to say, I'm ready. I'm ready to get in the trenches with you and fucking duke it out if you're going to tell me this was a bad presentation.
No, I think this was great. I guess we'll give our kind of grade scores for it at the beginning. I think it was a good presentation. I think it had maybe some issues with the front half being a little bit too stuff we've already seen, and I don't really care about this, and where's the new stuff. Like, it opened with a real heavy hitter, and I was like, wow, this is cool. And then it was very much like, oh, we got Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, we've got Rainbow Six, we've seen the Alan Wake stuff already.
3 of the 4 first announcements are new games. Or not necessarily, like, we've seen Forspoken before, but we hadn't really seen it.
Yeah, that's true. But like some of the other ones, like Rainbow Six, did I need to see Rainbow Six Extraction again?
Did we need to see
GTA 5 again?
A story trailer for GTA 5, a game that came out like 10 years ago.
It was like, that was on 360. We saw the story trailer then. I don't need to see it again. So some of that was weird, and I get that that's probably there just because, their partners paid them to be at that event, or they want to support their partners, so fair enough. But it was like, we got 27 minutes in, and I was like, we haven't had a single PlayStation Studios game. We've had 2 Microsoft Studios games and not a single PlayStation Studios games. And then, like, bam.
What was the second one?
We had Ghostwire Tokyo, and we've had Deathloop. They're both from Bethesda Studios.
Oh, right. I forgot Ghostwire Tokyo was a Bethesda
thing. So you've got 2... so we've got 2 Xbox Studio games on a PlayStation event, and we didn't have any PlayStation Studio stuff until around about 30 minutes into the presentation, which I thought was also a bit weird.
Yeah, but I thought it was fucking awesome because
the reveals after that mark was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, it's like, what are you kidding me? Yeah, they saved the best for last. It's like, I mean, my total lack of care about Gran Turismo aside, the last 3 announcements in a row are the 3 best and biggest announcements of the showcase. And they were all fucking bomb drops, one of which is a totally new IP. Like, not new IP, but new game, right? Like, I feel like, if you want to talk about grades or whatever, I'd give this an A. Like, there were pacing issues, I'll give that to you. But I don't think, like, name one event that doesn't have something like that. That doesn't have anything that's like, oh, okay, this is...
I'd say there was one year at E3 with the Xbox thing, and it was just like bam, 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 and that nothing was wrong with that presentation whatsoever. But I was very glad we saw Jim Ryan for like 5 minutes or like 5 seconds at the beginning, and then it was literally just, here's all the games.
Well,
which was nice.
I did also like like you talked about, right? There's that kind of like block of like all of the PlayStation first party stuff, and it was like fucking Herman Hulst just comes out to be like, we at PlayStation believe in kicking ass and taking names, and we're going to continue to do that. Then it's just like, bam, here's the announcements. Love that. So it's like, were there 2 or 3 things I would cut if I was in charge and could just make whatever decisions I wanted? Sure. But, like, even those things were short, right? Like, GTA 5 and the other one, the Ubi game that we were...
Tiny Tina's.
What? Oh, not even that.
Rainbow Six.
Rainbow Six. Both Rainbow Six and GTA were short. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which we have seen before, it was all new stuff. So, like, that to me that's a good balance to strike, right? Like, if you're gonna show old stuff, get through it quickly or give me something I haven't seen before. And I feel like they did that, you know?
No, yeah, you're right, and I'm not saying it was a bad show. I agree with you.
No,
It's a great presentation. I mean, we'll talk about it more at the end. I do have some concerns and issues with some of the final 3 reveals, but I don't know if you want to go through this in chronological, the stuff that we care about that we'll touch on, and then maybe like touch on some of the other stuff, or if you just want to bring up the stuff.
Let's just bring up the hype stuff right out the gate, right? Like,
Okay.
let's get into the main events. What are your concerns? Because so I mean, our
my issue with it is that it's all 2023 and beyond. Wolverine doesn't have a date, so it's probably after Spider-Man, right?
yeah, I would have. Well, probably I would guess, but it's
That's
like
my guess.
I don't know how Insomniac makes so many games. Like
No, I don't either. Well, yeah, Jason Schreier said, and we learned that Insomniac has 10,000 people working there now. It's like, it really does feel like that. They're just making game after game after game. But that's my main concern. And I guess it's less of a concern with those games, because I know that Insomniac will deliver, and more of a concern with PlayStation's lineup for 2022, because it's looking quite sparse. And the games that we have seen, Horizon we know is there. There's quite a few at the beginning half of the year. Like Forspoken's also a spring release, and we've obviously also got Elden Ring coming in that time as well. The rest of the year is kind of wide open at the moment, so I'm curious to what's going to go in there and fill up that gap. But I guess that's the same concern I've got with Xbox as well.
Sure.
At the moment, there's nothing there.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you can make that argument about Nintendo right now, too. Like, we don't really know what next year looks like. There are a few things you can point to.
Yeah, like Splatoon 3 we know is there. We know that there is Pokemon Legends, and we know they're targeting Breath of the Wild
Right.
2. So those are 3 huge games that are coming out next year.
But
Whereas,
I mean, to the point,
there's nothing here from like Naughty Dog. There's nothing here to point to.
I mean, Naughty Dog just put a game out last year.
Studios. They did, yeah, they did.
You know what I mean?
True, but Insomniac just put a game out like 5 minutes ago, and we know the next 2 games that they're doing.
Yeah, but I mean, they're a way bigger studio. They have multiple studios that work on multiple games at the same time. Naughty Dog isn't quite like that. Like, they have an A team and a B team, but like, they also kind of like break those teams down and reabsorb them and then restructure them after like every game. So it's like,
yeah, and like they were here. We do have the Uncharted remaster, which I kind of assumed we were going to get when we saw the PC version like accidentally be revealed, maybe in their investor deck.
For sure.
The same with the Ragnarok name. I think that was pretty much confirmed in the investor deck, which was kind of a shame that reveal didn't happen here.
So you brought that up though, right? So I mean, like, that's my thing is I feel like it's easy to look at it and be like, oh no, like, what do they have next year? But it's like, if Horizon comes out next year, if Forspoken hits next year, if God of War Ragnarok hits next year like it's supposed to, that's 3 big games. That's 3 big major AAA releases.
Yeah, true.
That's a lot. Like, that's not, I don't know, right? Like, last year, PlayStation had the same number of games, and nobody was like, oh, slow year for PS4, right? Like, you had Ghost, you had Final Fantasy, you had Last of Us, and that was a lot. 2018,
I felt like
we had Spider-Man and God of War, and that was enough.
I think it's different though, because people are hungry for something for their PS5. I think that's where it comes from. It's like, I want the next gen thing. And some of the stuff they've shown, don't get me wrong, looks absolutely incredible, and there's no way I could see that running on a PS4. So these are seemingly now the true next gen games, whereas before we maybe had like a little bit of a crossover.
Yeah.
And like hearing Herman Hulst talk, like really selling the fact that seemingly the only thing they have on some of these cross-gen games is like his big thing is selling that controller. It's like in Horizon, you feel those triggers doing it, and he was talking about in Gran Turismo 7 how you can really feel like the car and the rumble, and as you're accelerating and braking, the triggers get more tight and stuff, and that's like such a cool feature.
I'm so excited to experience that with specifically God of War because of how good the weapons feel in that game. Like, I can't even fucking imagine like how that's going to impact it even more, right? Where it's like maybe you have more control over the Leviathan axe or like additional moves with the chains based on how hard you're pulling or whatever. Like I think that's going to be really cool. And like point taken about like people being hungry for new stuff, but like, I don't know. Like, I really feel like this cycle of it's a next gen console, so I deserve 5 new games. It's like, this is not how things work. Like, this isn't how the PS4 cycle was. It's not like how the PS3 cycle was. The Switch wasn't like this when it came out. Like, I don't understand why we only hold Sony and the PS5 to that bar, and we don't say this shit about any of the other console manufacturers.
I think Microsoft has been kind of held to that as well.
I don't.
It's kind of like, where is everyone's been talking about the fact that, they missed Halo. Where's the kind of the standout thing? Because PlayStation did have its big exclusive. They have had a couple of big exclusives for the PS5.
Xbox still hasn't had even one.
No. It's had Flight Sim, but I don't think you can really count that as like a huge
Yeah,
exclusive.
I mean, like, no offense to Flight Sim. That's big for the people that care about it, but that's not Halo. It's not Spider-Man. Like, it's not the same
No,
thing.
and the new Halo is still going to be cross-gen, and I guess Spider-Man Miles Morales was cross-gen, and Horizon's going to be cross-gen, so we're in that limbo period for a while.
Yep. But again, that's how every console works. Right? What was the game of the year the PlayStation 4 came out? Dragon Age Inquisition, which was also on the PS3.
Fair enough. That's just my concern. Like, I'm excited, and I'm very excited for Wolverine. I think that game looks well. I mean, from the trailer, I loved like the Wolverine and the X-Men movies. Those are some of the Marvel movies I've actually seen. So
this is news to me.
To be able to play the ones with Hugh Jackman, in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I've
have you
seen
seen Logan then?
No, I've not seen Logan.
Oh, you should see Logan. Logan fucking whips.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm looking for an in, so maybe Wolverine is the time. So it might be the time for me to get into the seemingly Insomniac Marvel universe.
And then you got to jump in on Spider-Man because we all know you're a Miles Morales fan now after Spider-Man.
I love Miles Morales.
So,
Miles Morales is great. He was awesome in Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah,
I loved that movie.
Absolutely.
It was great.
Absolutely. So, okay, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, I guess let's get into some of the announcements in a more chronological order, and we can, we can kind of take it as it comes. So as we said, things kicked off with the reveal of a Knights of the Old Republic remake being developed by Asper, alongside, I mean, seemingly a PlayStation exclusive. At least
it's a timed console exclusive.
Thank you.
According to that blog post.
So, I mean, that's obviously a hugely hype announcement. Knights of the Old Republic, a very, very well-remembered game. Super cool for me, because obviously I'm a big BioWare fan, and that was kind of like, not necessarily the game they cut their teeth on, but I feel like it was the game where they really established, like, the BioWare style of, like, you're a character and you can be a Jedi or you can be a Sith. And if you're a good guy, that influences your companions. And if you're a bad guy, that influences your companions and all those kinds of things. I've tried to play KOTOR like 4 times, like a few times when it was contemporary and a few times like years later. And I've never gotten that far in. Like I don't think I've ever made it past like the first big planet or anything like that.
Is it because of the Star Wars theming, or is it just because it feels too old? Or
I think it was the
story
age of it, because I love Star Wars.
Yeah.
It was definitely more like I was playing it on Xbox 360 at the tail end of the 360 generation.
And it was an original Xbox game.
Yeah, so it was already
and playing it backwards compatibility.
Yeah, so it was already very old when the time that I started it, and it wasn't that it was like bad or that I was like, oh, I can't get into this because it's so old and obtuse. But it was more like, okay, I'm playing this like 10-year-old game right now, and it's not exactly grabbing me. And like some shiny new game came out, the PS4 came out a few months later, and I was like, all right, cool, I'm done with this. I'm gonna play Dragon Age Inquisition. So now I kind of feel like rewarded for that almost, because it's like, oh yes, like this is my time. Like I can finally play this game and like get the experience that everybody has talked about for so long.
I'm very curious how you feel about it being taken away from BioWare and EA, and then them not being involved at all. It's obviously been given to Asper. It's been published by someone else, so it seems like this game was maybe in the works at BioWare because we've heard it rumored for a while, and perhaps they're working on something else. And
I
the Lucasfilm Games has given this to Asper instead.
Yeah, I don't necessarily feel like I don't feel like this is something that BioWare would be particularly interested in working on. You know, like I think, not to say that like it doesn't matter or that it's not like something that people would care about, but I feel like when you compare what BioWare is working on right now, what we know that they're working on, which is the next Dragon Age and the next Mass Effect, not only is that something that I think I'm more personally interested in as a BioWare fan, it's clear why EA would want that, right? Like, if they remake Knights of the Old Republic and it's good, great, okay. Like, you got one game out in the Star Wars franchise, which is something that you've already been doing for years, and now the license is starting to move out of their hands, and it's just like there's not a huge value for BioWare and EA to put BioWare's resources, limited resources, toward remaking a classic game of theirs that anybody could remake, right? Like, seemingly. Whereas, you know, the core BioWare team working on remaking Mass Effect, that was obviously a huge boon for them, right? Because Mass Effect is an IP
I heard something yesterday. I can't remember who it was. I don't think it was BioWare's core team that really did that remaster.
It was a bunch of members from the team that led it. I think some of the work was outsourced, but a lot of the like original Mass Effect team came back and helped shepherd.
Okay,
that.
fair enough. Yeah, because I know there was a third party studio involved who seemingly did another remaster or is doing another remaster. I can't remember which studio it is.
So that. My point being, I think it makes a lot more sense for BioWare, who is a studio that's been in decline and like has, you know, put out a couple games that were not received well, that like have kind of tarnished their legacy in a big way, to focus on their IP, on their original IP. Sense. You know, so as excited as I am about this, that I think I'll get a chance to experience this game with like, you know, some modern benefits, but hopefully one that still feels true to that original experience. I'm actually glad it's not BioWare working on it, because I want them to focus their efforts on revitalizing their franchises that are in need of that right now.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I've never played Knights of the Old Republic. I do like Star Wars, but I'm not like a massive Star Wars fan. It's not like, oh wow, I really need to see Star Wars, and you know. I can take it or leave it, really.
Sure.
Is where I'm at with Star Wars, which I know a lot of people would disagree with. But speaking of Star Wars, now this is a segue, Pete. Forspoken, did you see it's being written by the writer of Rogue One and the original Uncharted writer? So Gary Whitta and Amy Hennig are working on it.
No, I didn't know that. That's awesome. I think I knew that Gary Whitta was working on it, but not that Amy Hennig was involved.
Yeah, and then we've got music by Bear McCreary, who did the God of War music, and Gary Scheinman, who worked on BioShock.
I think Bear McCreary also did the Walking Dead music. He's like a big composer.
It looks like it's gonna be a pretty big game. I couldn't decide if I liked it or not, having watched the trailer.
I definitely liked it. I'm into it.
I was big into it. I thought it looked stunning. And I was like, wow, what is this? You know, when she's on the bus and then it goes and she ends up in this portal, and the portal was just like so gorgeous, and she's like walking through. And then it lost me when she started talking to her wrist brace, and I was like, oh no, is this like a comedy bit? Like, what's all this about? And that was the point where I was just like, I'm not so sure about that as a kind of concept.
Oh yeah, no, I don't know. That definitely was interesting to me. Like, I don't think in 2021 there's room for things that are just edgelordy. Like, I don't. At least for me. Like, I'm kind of over that. I'm over dark, dreary, edgelordy aesthetics, especially in video games. I feel like they really just come off as juvenile. So the idea that this is like a world that's kind of like got some of that dark and edginess to it, and that there's like a sense of humor, and that there will be some comic relief.
I'm all for a sense of humor. Like, I love the sense of humor in Uncharted. I'm one of the one people, like the one person seemingly, that likes Bagley in the latest Watch Dogs. He gives like the bit of British humor to it. So I'm all for humor. It's just the concept of talking to an inanimate object that I couldn't get around. Maybe the story reveals that it's not. I'm sure it will. I'm sure there's more to it.
I'm sure it's some person communicating with you through the bracelet, or it's some person trapped in the bracelet, or whatever. Yeah, whatever. I don't care. That's fine. Like, I was interested enough in what we saw and like the beats that we were getting, that I'm like, yeah, whatever. Explain it to me. That's fine. Like, I trust you enough. I trust the vision that I've been presented to be like, you'll make this make sense. You know, or maybe they won't, but that.
Well, with the writer team that's now been revealed, I kind of have a lot more faith in it.
Yeah.
Now that I know who's behind the story and behind the concept, I kind of get it a little bit more. Whereas when I was just watching the trailer, I was like, oh, what's all this about? Because it kind of seemed just a little bit, I don't know, disconnected from what everything else they'd shown in the trailer up to that point. It was like, oh, what's this cool mysterious portal that she's found, and now she's in this world doing cool stuff. And then
I kind of get the sense that you're supposed to feel that way a little bit, because it's like a fish out of water story, right? Like, she's this person like living in New York City or whatever, and trying to like get out
and
to
then all of a sudden, she's in this strange new world that she's found. Yeah.
So I kind of like that. Like, that's different. It's different than it just being like another Swords and Sorcery universe, right? Like, I don't know. I'm interested. I'm definitely interested from what we saw. And it's definitely a game that like I was already looking forward to, just because I thought the gameplay looked really cool. But like, seeing more of it now, I'm like, yeah, please let me get my hands on this. So I mean, I guess we're skipping stuff. Are we just jumping around to the stuff we cared about the most now? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah. I mean, after Forspoken was Rainbow Six, Alan Wake, GTA 5, Ghostwire Tokyo. I don't care about any of those personally.
I'm interested in Alan Wake. I've never played Alan Wake. I know it's beloved. Obviously, Remedy is kind of on the tip of everybody's tongue right now after Control. I could see myself giving it a shot. I don't, it's not necessarily a game I'm like highly prioritizing, but Ghostwire Tokyo, I felt kind of similarly, where like I thought the gameplay looked really good, but the aesthetic of it is not really working for me. Like, I don't really like the enemies. Like, it just kind of looks.
Something feels off about it to me. It's just maybe a little bit too Uncanny Valley in places.
And it feels a little generic. It reminded me a lot of like Silent Hill and just like kind of other similar titles that I've seen and experienced before. And like, there's stuff about it that I thought looked cool, but it nothing about it was really jumping out at me, you know?
And
I think I felt kind of similarly to Wonderlands, which was something like, I don't like Borderlands, but like, I don't know, something about the pitch and it being like set in, you know, this like fantastical kind of setting and everything. I don't know. There's like something there that's appealing to me, but it's again a game I feel like I'm just gonna bounce off of. So
Ashley Birch isn't enough to sell that game for you.
I do like Ashley Birch quite a bit. So I mean, maybe that's part of it. You know, is like her character is the main character and seemingly the narrator and, you know, all that stuff. So it's like, I don't know. Maybe this will be the thing that gets me in on the Borderlands.
I don't think so.
I don't necessarily think so either, but we shall see. And yeah, Project Eve also didn't do anything for me. That very much
absolutely nothing for me. My main thought when I was watching that was like, wow, she's not wearing very much. That was basically what I got from that. I was like, she's doing a lot of action and she really should be wearing some more robust clothing because she's going to get hurt.
Yeah, I don't know. Like looking at it, it just felt so much like, okay, like this looks like a Platinum game. Like this reminds me of Bayonetta.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna think that. Yeah, everyone in the Discord was saying how close to Bayonetta she looks from like a model. You know, she's got similar figure, things like that.
And similarly, like you said, is like kind of like, you know, there's like butt shots and like here's this long slide up her legs, and I'm just like, this is not for me. I know there's a player that very much appeals to, but yeah, I cannot see myself engaging with that on any level. But speaking of a game that's definitely up my alley, I am super excited to get my hands on Guardians of the Galaxy, which we got another deeper dive at. I am feeling a lot more bullish about this game.
Good, because last time we spoke, and I'm happy to hear that, because last time we spoke, you had a lot of reservations about it, whether it was going to be too close to replicating the movies and not being faithful to the comic books and things like that. I like the look of this game a lot. I really do.
I think because the initial look at it was like a glimpse at all of the different things. Like, it's like, here's what the combat looks like, and we focused on that a lot. And here's how the dialogue system, we kind of focused on that a lot. And like, this was more just like, here are beats, like here's cutscenes with comedy in them, and like they were landing for me. And I thought the animation looks pretty solid. And like a lot of the things that I kind of was worried about, or that left me feeling like, I don't know about this. I want to like it, but it's giving me some of that, like, it's giving me the same kind of pause that I think, like, you know, I saw the initial Avengers trailer, right? And I was like, okay, this doesn't look great, but it's kind of far off. This is a studio that I really have faith in. I'm sure it'll come together. And it very much didn't. And this, I feel like...
Who did the Avengers game? Because I have a lot of faith in Eidos Montreal.
Yeah, that was Crystal Dynamics.
Okay.
And that's the thing, right? It's like, I know Eidos is a great studio that's capable of great stuff. But, you know, I thought the same thing about Avengers. So I was trying not to get myself too excited for it, you know, too like, oh, this is going to be great. But seeing this deeper dive, I really think this game's going to speak to me. I think it's going to check a lot of the like boxes that I want out of just this kind of video game, you know? Like
You got a lot of Marvel to play. There's not much DC going on, though, in the gaming sphere. Though,
no,
seemingly.
I mean, there's the DC fandom coming up in a couple weeks, and I know they're going to show off Gotham Knights and everything, so there will be some DC games in the future, I think. But, yeah, I mean, I think it's funny because, like, obviously, I'm a Marvel fan. You know, I like the Guardians fine. But... yeah, they're an IP that's tough for me because, like, my attraction and my relationship to the Guardians does come from the movies. Like, I am not really super, like, tapped into their comics history or anything like that. So, like, it is weird, I think, how, like, that is such a definitive take on those characters that it clearly has influenced every other appearance they've had since then. And that was something that I was definitely worried about, was like, is it going to just feel like it's aping the MCU, that it's trying to chase that tone? And it feels like it's definitely inspired by that, but it feels like it's kind of doing its own thing. And there are some deep cut kind of characters that have made some appearances here that have me feeling, you know, okay, yeah, like maybe this has something. Maybe this has something going for it that's going to speak to me.
I think it does. I don't think this is going to be a standout must-play game like maybe Spider-Man will be, but I do think it's going to be a solid game. I think maybe 7, 8, middle of the road, maybe a little bit better than average. I just, you know, I have faith in Eidos. I really liked the Tomb Raider series that I've been slowly playing through.
I could definitely see it being a game that most people think is like an 8, and I'm like, oh, this game's incredible, because like it has so many gameplay mechanics that are exactly what I like. You know, like I love games that are about an ensemble cast and that are about like, oh, like the relationships you have with your, you know, supporting characters impact your options, and like I love that stuff. So it's definitely got some Mass Effect vibes to it in that way, or you know, Dragon Age or what have you. So I'm looking forward.
Or Outer Worlds.
Sure, yeah. It's that classic pen and paper RPG stuff, you know. Which I'm definitely excited for. Speaking of games, again, that I'm very excited for, this one's even more fucking imminent somehow, is Deathloop. So we got another deep look at Deathloop, and I saw you make a comment in our Discord that I gotta say, it bothered me to my very core, Steve.
Yeah, you almost
like-
were you like crying a little bit?
You're like, the more I see of it, like the less interested I am because it just looks like Dishonored. And it's like, okay, first of all, it doesn't just look like Dishonored. Second of all, if it is looking more like Dishonored, that should make you more interested because Dishonored's the best.
I didn't say it looks exactly. It doesn't just look like Dishonored. I said it's looking more and more like Dishonored, which makes sense because it's from the same team, right?
It's the best game that came out the year that it came out, right? Yeah.
So there's a lot of lineage, I think, coming from Dishonored.
Yeah.
And when I was playing through some of Dishonored, it just didn't click with me. It didn't. I don't know what it was, Pete. I'm sorry. I just couldn't get in with it like I got in with Hitman, and I really wanted to love it as much as you do. It didn't gel with me as much. And maybe that's an age thing, because I was playing the original, I was playing the first one. It could well be that since then, the gameplay, the design has moved on a little bit, and it feels a little bit different, which I'm sure it will. I love the concept of Deathloop, and maybe part of my apprehension for the game comes from disliking 12 minutes and worrying that I'm going to get bored of the loop like I did with 12 minutes.
I don't think that's going to be a concern.
I don't think so. I don't think so either. I'm very curious as to whether it's one big loop or if say it's level based like Dishonored was, and each level's kind of like a loop and you're trying to solve the level.
It is. That's what I've heard, is that because you're on a day-long loop and you choose to go to different levels, and then you learn things from different levels that you can leverage in those other levels. So, like, it seems like you'll complete levels over again, but it'll be like, I hit a dead end the last time I was here because I don't have this piece of information that I need. And then you find it, and then you're like, oh, okay, now I can go back and get further there, and I'll learn something else, and then I'll do this, and that's kind of the vibe I've gotten from it. Is it's very much about doing them over so that you can get new skills or learn more information or figure out different options that you have here or there or whatever. But
that is cool.
The combat just looks so fucking good. Like I just love the way that they make worlds that you can just interact with so deeply, you know?
So this is a day one pickup for you, I presume?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm
looking forward to watching you stream some of this on Twitch, because I think watching someone I know play a game is very different to just watching glimpses of it in a trailer and not really understanding how the gameplay and the minute by minute action really works.
Sure.
It's quite difficult to understand what it's all about, but I love the aesthetic. I love the kind of Soul Bassy style, 60s posters and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Love all of that. It's a really cool look. I just worry that the gameplay is not going to be for me the more I see of it.
I really hope that the aesthetic gets people in the door, because I feel like that's the thing that everybody points to with Dishonored is like, oh, I just didn't really like the world. The whale punk thing didn't work for me, blah, 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 blah. And it's like the gameplay of Dishonored is like fucking immaculate. I think like we just need a world that people can, I don't know, find a point of entry to a little bit easier. And I feel like this world is that. It's more stylish. It's more unique. But we'll see.
And Sona's, promoting the hell out of it because it's their big exclusive of the year.
Yeah. I mean, I'm super excited for this. I am I downloaded Life is Strange True Colors, and I have to start that tonight after our stream. So sorry in advance. It's going to be a short one for me. But I am like, okay, I have like a weekend to finish this game, and then Deathloop's going to come out. So it's going to be a slog, I think, to get through these games, let alone to circle back and finish Mass Effect 3. So, but very excited. Good, definitely a day one purchase for me. I will show up for anything and everything that Arcane does for the rest of time.
Yeah? You're going to go back and play Prey then?
No, I started it. I didn't like it. That's fine. Here's the thing. There are two Arcane studios.
I know, Leon and...
Austin, I think it is. One's in Texas and one is in Europe. And the Texas studio, I think, is the one that made Dishonored and Dishonored 2, and it's the European studio that did Prey. So maybe I just don't like their stuff as much.
It's the European one doing that like vampire game that's coming out on Xbox, right?
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, because seemingly the Dishonored team's working on this, right? So
Yeah.
So we shall see. But yeah, I found Prey to be too spooky. It was like too lonely and scary, and I was just like, I don't like this.
It was very much a shock. It was a shock game. It was like a Bioshock, a System Shock. That's what it was meant to be.
Yeah.
And they really captured the feel of those games. They did it really well. So I
Yeah.
think they did justice and achieved what they wanted to. It just wasn't the game you were expecting from Arcane.
Yeah, it just wasn't quite what I wanted from them. Definitely nothing against the quality of the game. It was just like it just wasn't hitting me the way I wanted it to. Whereas this is like very much what I want from an Arcane. So I am all about this. So yeah, get ready for those day one impressions from ya boy. So this was a game I'm very interested to hear your thoughts about. Because I think this is a Steve game. Chia? Tchia? I think it's Chaya. Okay. Super interesting. A little bit hard to. It's kind of like a little bit hard to boil down, but like I feel like the big thing is that like you have this ability to like take control of any animal or object that you can that you can find, and like that allows you to like if you're like if you're watching on YouTube right now, you can see she becomes a seagull and she can fly all over the island. She's like a sea turtle and she can swim in the ocean. Right now on screen, she's getting into a dog and she can like dig things up. And, so it's like all about how the different animal powers allow you to like interact with the world. There's like a ukulele that's like fully playable, which I imagine is going to be, probably a queue thing that will like unlock different things. There's like a glider. So we've got those Breath of the Wild vibes. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely like not a conventional looking game, but it very much caught my attention.
Yeah, I think it looks absolutely stunning. I liked Chewie's comment on it, which equated the kind of animal takeover thing to Mario Odyssey, because it very much is that. It's you become that character and you get different skills, but it's they call it a game inspired by New Caledonia, and you just wander around this island. It's an open world island game, and I just think it looks absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to play this. It's coming to PS4, so I can play this one if I want to. It's not a PS5 exclusive, thankfully.
Won't.
No, probably not. I'm not. That PS4 is just collecting dust.
You'll lament that you don't have a PS5
terrible.
And just not play it. Is what I'm gonna guess happens.
Or what I'll do is I'll play it on my Steam Deck, which
it is on the Epic Game Store.
Be here.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's like an Epic published game that they're like pushing with Sony as well.
Yeah, they're taking money from anywhere, and I don't blame them. It's why wouldn't you? It's a smart move to get money and fund your game if you can.
Absolutely. So we're jumping around a little bit here. If there's anything we didn't comment on, it's because it didn't really catch our attention.
The one thing I do want to talk about before we move on to the other stuff, before we move into the kind of PlayStation-y bits, that weird as fuck Radiohead thing. What was that?
I have no idea, and I gotta be honest with you, I don't care. I don't like Radiohead. Have never cared for Radiohead. I know that.
Yeah, you found him a bit too whiny.
Not even that. I just don't dig Radiohead, and like I know that that's blaspheme to a lot of folks. Like no disrespect, but I could not care less about Radiohead, and like the idea of like PlayStation being like, ooh, like we're partnering with Radiohead for an exhibition experience. I'm like, whatever. I don't care. I do not care. Sorry.
I thought they were using Radiohead's music at the beginning of a trailer, and then they never really showed any gameplay, and it was like, are we in a gallery? Is this like a museum we're in or something? And then all of a sudden it was like a new experience from Radiohead coming soon, and then it just skipped on to the next thing, and I was like, well, that was strange. Almost as strange as the opening trailer. The opening trailer to this whole thing was like I was watching Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet from like 2002. It was just bizarre. They're all playing like a game of chess, and then all of a sudden there's a massive statue of Aloy, and they're in these fancy cars. It was so weird, weird,
very odd. And then we moved into like kind of the PlayStation rock block. We got the look at the Thief's End and Lost Legacy remastered coming to PS5 and PC. Definitely, that's cool. Cool for PC players to finally get to play Uncharted. I was a little disappointed that it wasn't like the whole series. Like, I feel like that would be cool, but I also understand why you don't do that. So,
yeah, I mean, they've done the collection already, right? The
yeah, but it was for
Uncharted
PS4.
Nathan Drake collection.
Pump that up,
But most of those are ports from PS3 anyway, so you'd have to like port it again. I think that's probably going to be a hell of a lot of work for them.
Bluepoint could do it. Whatever, they just bought them. Who cares?
They haven't announced that they bought them yet. It's still a mystery as to whether
bought
Bluepoint
'em.
belongs to Sony or not.
They bought them. Let's be real. All right, so the next big announcement, and this is when we kind of moved into the last few of the show, was a huge surprise. I think at least to me. I don't know if this rumor was out there or whatever, but we got the Insomniac Games logo, right? And we cut Marvel logo, and then we cut to this bar scene. I immediately was like, this is Wolverine. This is clearly Wolverine.
Oh, see, other people were thinking maybe it was a Punisher game.
Nah, no. Punisher wouldn't dress like this. Because that's the thing, right? Like, just the shot of him where he's from him behind, he's in the flannel and has the cowboy hat. It's like, yeah, that's fucking Logan. That's absolutely Logan. And the close up on his hands, if you're maybe not, as inundated in Marvel, right? You could just be like, oh, he's punching people. You can see the blood marks from where the claws come out before he puts them back out.
Oh, that's so cool.
And for me, when I saw that, my initial thought when I saw Wolverine and the Insomniac logo, right, is of course, oh shit, Wolverine's in Spider-Man 2? Like, that was 100% what I thought was happening. And then we get the Wolverine logo, and I was like, oh, okay, awesome, what the fuck? Like, Insomniac...
Were you a little bit disappointed that it wasn't Spider-Man 2?
No, not at all.
Weren't?
No, because, I mean, I went into this hoping that we would see Spider-Man 2, right? But I was like, they're not going to show Spider-Man 2. Miles Morales just came out. That game's got to be, like, at least 2 years away. If they show us a logo, cool. That's really all, like, whatever, right? That's probably all we can expect. So when they showed this, I was like, what the fuck? Oh, my God. All right, they're working on a third IP now. They have 3 IP in active development. That's bold as hell. Also, this is Sony's
They
now...
announced that they were working on Spider-Man 2, though, because it may have been
but...
So we don't know if they are actively working on 3 games, but they probably are.
I mean, they are now, right? We know that.
Are they doing another Ratchet and Clank?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not confirmed, but the end of Ratchet and Clank very much is like, here's the window for another one. Like, it's very
or
obvious.
at the very least, DLC.
Yeah, and I think it's very obvious to me what a sequel would look like and, like, what the characters would be going and doing. So to me, it feels like they very much set it up with the intention of making a sequel. But yeah, I mean, not only is it crazy that we're getting a Wolverine game, that it's made by Insomniac, that Insomniac's working on 3 games, this is also the second PlayStation exclusive Marvel IP now.
Does Sony own Marvel like they own Spider-Man, or is this a Disney property?
So the way that it works is Marvel in its totality is owned by Disney. Spider-Man, specifically the film rights to Spider-Man, are owned by Sony. But in every other capacity, Marvel owns Spider-Man.
Okay, so there could have been Spider-Man, if it wasn't exclusive to PlayStation, could have been on Xbox.
Could have been multi-plat. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But,
because I always presumed that they paywalled Spider-Man on PlayStation because they owned Spider-Man as a whole, because he was exclusive in Avengers as well, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, he's a PlayStation exclusive character who still hasn't come out. And I think that's just because PlayStation has that Spider-Man association, more than
needs to bring back the Spider-Man font on the
PS3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think that there's any I don't think that Sony has any rights to the character on the video game, in the video game sphere. I think he just ended up a PlayStation exclusive because they partnered with Insomniac to develop it.
Okay.
So yeah, so obviously that's a huge thing. This Wolverine news is like off the chain, frankly. I'm very excited by that. And it's a huge win for PlayStation to have now two, like arguably the two, maybe not in 2021, but I think if you like looked back on like Marvel over the past, 20, 30, 40 years, like Wolverine and Spider-Man are two of the most A of the A tier characters. So that's a huge fucking win for PlayStation.
Yeah, I think other Marvel characters have taken over Wolverine. I still think Spider-Man's like the pinnacle and the face of Marvel. But when I think of other characters, I think of like Iron Man is above Wolverine in my mind.
Yeah, I mean the MCU has like brought those characters to the forefront, but like pre-MCU, Iron Man was like a C-lister. Like nobody was like caring about Captain America and Iron Man in the way that, folks cared about Wolverine and the X-Men, not to say that like comic readers didn't care, but like the average general public, right? It was not nearly as familiar.
Yeah, we knew Spider-Man and Superman and maybe Batman, and that was it.
Right. And then Wolverine and the X-Men definitely creeped up there in the 90s,
Well, yeah, because we had the X-Men movies. I think
the
that's
cartoon.
what really brings it all up, right? It's when it breaks out of its original medium into stuff that's more accessible to people.
Yeah, and the X-Men cartoon was huge in the 90s, so it's like totally makes sense. So yeah, that was through the roof, put me through the roof. And then I was like, okay, cool, there's no way they're going to show Spider-Man 2. And then they fucking showed off Spider-Man 2, right? Like what an event. What an event. And not only did they show off Spider-Man 2, they gave some pretty big clues as to what the game is about. So, I mean, obviously they showed Venom, right? I think that's not surprising. I think we all knew Venom was going to be in this game. There was a teaser for Venom in some of the original game's material.
I thought it was fucking cool because him and the Green Goblin are like the only two I know.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, Venom's up there, right? Like, in terms of the Spider-Man Rogues Gallery. But they so they confirmed that we actually got to look at him, and that made a difference. But then there's that other character who's giving the voiceover, and he's like, all my life I've been looking for a challenge, and is one of you gonna meet the challenge or whatever? That's Kraven the Hunter, who's like another like that's like one of the best Spider-Man villains. I definitely think that that's him, and he's gonna be one of the main antagonists, and maybe, I mean, it's hard for me to guess what's gonna happen with the symbiote, like, because it's weird that it's already on Eddie. So, like, that would imply, I mean, it's seemingly Eddie Brock. That would imply, seemingly, that Peter has already had the symbiote and gotten rid of it. And that's already something that's happened in the history of this universe. Yeah, I don't know. And then definitely seems to imply that this game is going to give me what I wanted, where I'll have missions where I play as Peter and missions where I play as Miles. Which is hype. So yeah,
there was some like discussion online that maybe there's some multiplayer aspect to it as well with the two Spider-Man. Do you have any thoughts or feelings on that?
I think it's potentially possible. I don't know, maybe, but like I wouldn't assume that just because there's more than one main character, right? Look at Grand Theft Auto 5. Like, it could just be that kind of trajectory where it's like there's Peter missions, there's Miles missions. You can take them in whatever order you want, or you can play as either of them through the whole campaign, and maybe it's slightly different depending on who you pick, or, maybe it's, for 75% of the game you're Peter, but then there's a point in the story where he's taken off the board and you got to play as Miles, and, there's a lot of different ways it could play out.
And it's seemingly set in New York City, which I know you had some reservations about before because you were a little bit concerned that maybe it would feel a little bit too samey, because I know you've now had 2 Spider-Man games in New York. Maybe we wanted to expand into a different place. It looks like it's still in New York.
It can't, though. Like, that's not a thing that would ever make sense, right? Like, Spider-Man is from New York. He is the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Maybe he pops on holiday, and while he's relaxing on the beach, there's some crimes happening.
Yeah, I mean, like, maybe they go that
Needs to pay
direction
attention.
at some point, but like, nah, I don't think you need that, frankly. Like, when I was playing Miles Morales, I wasn't thinking, oh, this is the same map, right? Like, New York City is huge.
Yeah. Plus, you've got 2 more years now to wait, possibly longer.
Yeah. So I think by that point, it's going to feel fresh enough, and they can add to it in ways that they didn't, before. Maybe give you some more, like depth to the world. Like, it's just, it's the same map, but it's deeper and more layered, I
look forward to everyone breaking down the puddles in the following trailers in years to come, because those puddles look fucking amazing. Definitely some ray tracing going on those puddles.
Can't wait.
That's all I've got to say.
Can't wait.
I don't know anything about Spider-Man. You were talking symbiotes and Eddie, whoever Eddie is,
Brock.
and I was like, whoosh. Don't know who this is.
He's Venom. He's the man inside the suit.
Oh, it's a suit? I thought he was like an alien.
Well, it is an alien, but so the whole thing is the reason it's called a symbiote, right? Is it's a like mass, basically. It's an alien mass, and it attaches to a host, and then gives them power, and but it needs them to survive.
Okay.
Yeah. And like the whole like framing device is basically like Spider-Man gets it and starts using it, and it makes him like more aggressive and like angrier and more violent and these things, and he's like, oh shit, like this thing is alive. I need to get this off of me. And then
like the ring in Lord of the Rings.
Yes. It's just like that. And then he when he and the suit split, the suit resents him and is angry at him, and it attaches to Eddie Brock, who's a photojournalist who Peter like fucks up his career because he exposes that he was doctoring photos or plagiarizing. So Eddie hates him and Venom hates him, and then they come together and like they're fueled by their mutual hatred for Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
How does Peter expose him? Is he a journalist in that timeline? Because I thought he was a scientist in these games.
In the beginning of the game, they talk about how he has recently quit his job as a photographer and has started working for, I forget the name of the company that he was working on with Otto, but yeah.
Where you do lots of sciencey puzzles.
Yeah, historically he's a journalist. He was a photojournalist, and his job was to take pictures of Spider-Man.
Yeah, a great job.
I mean, it works out for him pretty well, yeah. Lets him keep a flexible schedule, But yeah, since then he's been a teacher and then a scientist, and he's always been a scientist, but he was always basically too busy being a crime fighter to like have a real job. Anyway, so then we get to the arguably the main event. It's pretty fucking hype. It's the game that I think I was most excited to see and most definitely convinced we would see, which was, of course, God of War Ragnarok. It looks fantastic, frankly. Like, it looks like more of the same, but better, turned up to 11, not just graphically, but like gameplay-wise. Some of the combat looks incredible. We see Atreus, is like a teenager now. This is like seemingly several years later. And we're going to follow up on the threads left at the end of God of War, right? Like chasing down Ragnarok, him trying to figure out, his origins and his relationship to the pantheon of Norse gods. This checked every box I needed it to. I'm so excited to play this game.
And I've heard because I carried on watching after the presentation ended, and they had a bit of an interview with some of the folks from Sony Santa Monica, and Thor's in it, and I'm really excited to see what their like interpretation of Thor is going to be like in these games. And obviously I know he's apparently the Norse god of
war,
god of something.
War.
No, the new giant guy.
The guy at the end.
The guy they go pick up. Yeah,
he's the god of war.
The Norse. Oh, is he? Okay.
That's what I thought they said. I was pretty sure that they said he was the Norse god of war, but he's disappeared for a long time.
No, he's back.
And then they go and release him, and then Kratos is like, "Oh, you're gonna join us or what?" So my guess is that he's gonna like team up with y'all, and you're about to go fucking wage war on the rest of the Norse gods.
Yeah.
Which is gonna be. That sounds insane. Like that's gonna be so fun. you know?
Yeah, it looked really cool. I love the fact that the studio shifts around directors, and so we've got a new director on the game, which is really nice to see. And they're seemingly working on something else at Sony Santa Monica that they couldn't reveal. So I'm very excited to see what Corey and the team also have in store. If they're working on potentially a different IP aside from God of War, and they can bring their talent to that as well, then I think there's a lot of exciting things in the future.
I'd love to see a new IP from them. Obviously, I loved God of War, and I'm super excited for God of War 2, but I feel like the studio has proved they can do, you know, I would say games that are like on par with the best of what Sony has to offer, right? Like God of War is one of the best premier PlayStation 4 games. And I don't think it's because of God of War or Kratos. I think it's because of what the team did and what they did with that IP and how, you know, Corey and that team elevated God of War. So I'd love to see them take that mentality and build something new from the ground up. But yeah, I hope this game makes it out next year. I'm really excited for it, but you know, if it looks like it's pretty far along to me too, but if it needs a little bit more time in the oven, you know, that's okay with me. Because I am very, very excited to get my hands on more God of War. So before we wrap it up, what was your number one announcement? Like, what was the thing you were most excited by?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't think there was, if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't think there's a lot here for me, not being a massive Marvel fan. I can see it's a fantastic presentation.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's just not a lot here that really stands out to me. I would probably say Forspoken is probably the one I'm most excited about because it's something fresh, it's something new. I'm interested to see more about that world.
Sure.
And we're probably going to see a lot more before the game releases. For you, by the sounds of it, is Wolverine?
I think Wolverine is the most exciting news. Yeah. Because I wanted to see God of War the most because it's imminent and I wanted like confirmation that it's far along and looking good, and it does. But I was never concerned that God of War wouldn't look good. I was never concerned that I wouldn't be interested in Spider-Man 2, right? Like the most exciting announcements at big game events are always the thing you didn't expect. And if you had put a gun to my head, I never would have fucking guessed that Insomniac was working on a Wolverine game, right? Would have never been on my bingo card. So I think for that and that alone, yeah, like that's the thing that I think is most immediately exciting about this presentation, whether or not, you know, it's the thing I'm maybe most looking forward to, because that's probably Spider-Man 2, but I mean, whatever. The last three, Wolverine, Spider-Man 2, and God of War, it's just like what a rock block for me, you know? Those are games that very much speak to me and my sensibilities, right? Like take my, you know, being a Marvel mark out of it, just those kinds of games are the games I get most excited for from AAA studios, you know? That's what PlayStation does best. So, yeah, can't wait to get my hands on, I would say 90% of the stuff they showed us today, so I'm feeling pretty good after this one.
Yeah, you made a good choice in picking up a PS5 and not selling it to your sister like I did.
Yeah, I think so. I think I made the right call there. All right, guys. So thank you so much for joining us here on this very special episode of the Flip Screen Games podcast. Let us know what your favorite announcements were from the PlayStation Showcase, or you know, what are the things you're most excited to get your hands on. I'm gonna vamp now for a few seconds because this is usually the end of the video where I'd put like the music and the little icons are coming up on screen and it's telling you to subscribe and go check out our other shows. So you know, I'm just gonna vamp for a minute so that there's something to be on screen while that's happening. Okay, go push these buttons. If you haven't checked us out before, hi, we're Flip Screen Games. Subscribe to the channel. Go check out the main show. It's a lot like this, only less news oriented. And then you can go check out Nintendo Noise, our Nintendo show. Do we have a PlayStation show yet? No, but we probably should at one point, right? I mean, ask for it, maybe we'll get it. Who's to say? Who's to say? All right, that's enough vamping. We'll see you on Monday for another one. Bye.
Bye.